they announced this reversal of policy. They ended QT and they talked about buying $40 billion worth of bonds as part of their reserve management. Now, what's key is if the Federal Reserve is buying short-term bills, it's reserve management. If it's buying long-term bills, from the Fed's view, it's quantitative easing. The debate you and I talked about has come to fruition. There's been a lot of debate in the media about, is it QE? Is it not QE?
It's QE. Really, what drove me to write the article was that Bitcoin has become a proxy for speculation, for liquidity in the system. So I kind of just started looking at the correlation between reserves and Bitcoin prices. And what I found is that there's a very strong correlation, not surprisingly, between Bitcoin prices and reserves. And I use reserves as a liquidity measure because that's what the Fed kind of directly impacts when they're doing QE or QT or many of the repo programs that they're doing. I kind of really think it's funny or ironic that Bitcoin is this decentralized, it's out of the system, it's not impacted by fiscal monetary policy, it's its own unique thing. Well, its price is very highly correlated with the level of reserves in the system. If you own Bitcoin, I'm not saying Bitcoin's good or bad or whatever, just understand that what you're really betting on is liquidity in the system. So once I kind of looked at Bitcoin, I decided to take it a step further, and I started looking at various equity indexes, equity sectors, equity factors, and a few other asset classes. And not surprisingly, what you come up with the same thing, that there's a high correlation, a high R squared between equity indexes, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, between most equity sectors. Interestingly, transportation's materials have the highest correlation, the highest R squared to the level of reserves. They're kind of the most economically impacted. However, utilities, energy, staples to a lesser degree have a very low correlation. So when you start thinking about this, the Fed's doing QE, should I buy Bitcoin? Well, it has a high correlation with reserves and reserves are going up. Maybe we should focus on transportation and materials. And if you want to hedge bets, you go with utilities or energy or staples because they don't have a relationship with reserves. The yield curve has a decent correlation with reserves as we would expect, but longer term bond prices don't have that great of a relationship. The dollar has a negative relationship. Corporate bond spreads have a negative but a very strong relationship, which you would expect like stocks. But Lance, the one that really got me, gold and silver, really no relationship with reserves. So Bitcoin is often lumped in with gold and silver, and it's interesting that Bitcoin is driven off liquidity. Gold and silver just don't seem to have a relationship with it. The point is, QE's here, and I don't care what you call it, the Fed is putting reserves into the system, and they're not taking them out.
Catch me daily on The Real Investment Show. The link is in the description.